Growing up, I used to like to read a lot of comic books. And I still really enjoy watching movies about superheroes, like Superman or Batman, Spider-Man. And one of the trademarks of every good superhero is that he has a secret identity. In other words, you had the public persona that everyone else saw, and then you had the superhero identity. And you never wanted the two to be connected with each other. That's why Clark Kent always wore glasses. You had a public perception everyone else saw, and they kept their identity a secret because they thought that their family or friends might be hurt if anyone knew who they really were. And so you'd have pictures of superheroes coming into a phone booth like this one, and Clark Kent would run in here and he would close the door, and then he would rip open his shirt to reveal the Superman logo underneath, and he would change into his costume so no one could see who he really was. It's interesting. As Christians, God doesn't want us to have a secret identity. Christianity is not designed to be a walk of life that we want to keep hidden from everyone that we know. It's interesting, in Matthew chapter 10, verse 32, Jesus says that whoever confesses His name before men, He will confess their names before the Father. Did you catch that? Jesus is going to confess our name before the Father if we're willing to confess His name before men. That's why confession is such an important part of becoming a Christian. When we look through the New Testament, especially in the book of Acts, and we see people who are converted to Christ, they believed that Jesus was the Son of God. They believed that He was who He said He was, and they made that confession. And so that's why when we see people become Christians, they stand before the congregation and make the confession that they believe that Jesus is the Son of God. But confession is not a one-time thing. It's a decision we make every day to tell our friends and our families that we believe Jesus is who He says He is. Have you ever known somebody that liked to hang out with you when there was no one else around? Like maybe when the popular group at school wasn't around, he would talk with you and he'd laugh at your jokes and talk about things you're interested in. But whenever someone who was maybe a little bit cooler, a little more popular walked in the door, it was like he'd never talked to you before, like he didn't know who you were. We've all dealt with those kinds of people, and we know that that kind of person is not a true friend. Well, if I want to be a friend to Jesus, if I want to truly follow Him, I can't treat Him that way. I can't go to a worship service on Sunday morning or a youth group activity on a Wednesday night and act like I'm really close with Jesus, and yet on Monday or on Thursday when I'm at school, act like I don't even know Him. Christianity can't be a secret identity for me. It's got to be something that everyone knows about. If I'm going to truly be a friend to Christ, I've got to be willing to confess Him every single day. In Acts chapter 4, Peter and John, leaders in the early church, they were apostles of Jesus. They were arrested, and they were arrested for preaching the message of Christ. And they get this opportunity that if they will just decide not to preach about Christ anymore, if they'll just decide to keep their mouths shut and not say anything, then they can be set free. And what's interesting is to read their response in verses 19 and 20 of chapter 4. They say that they can't help but speak about the things that they've heard. They can't help but spread that message. They understood that Christianity was not going to be a secret identity for them. It was going to be something they told everyone they met about. And you and I have to make that same decision. Confession is an important part of making the change and becoming a Christian. And there are some scriptures in your book about how important confession is, and even some examples of confession. Let's take a few minutes and look over those, and when we get back together, we'll continue to explore what it means to really become a Christian.